Hi everybody, my name is Adrian and I am a regression hypnosis practitioner. I'm also a Reiki master, a crystal healer, an angel healer, a numerologist. I'm an astrology student. I'm an NLP practitioner, as well as, well, let's rather put it this way, I also studied CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And so what I obviously get asked quite a lot when I speak about regression hypnosis, a lot of times our mind goes to past life regression. So I thought, let me make a video that focuses specifically on past life regression. So past life regression is really just going into a different sort of phase of our lives and sort of like cleaning something up. So what I want you to think is, so before we just kind of go like in the time and space type of thing, if you can for a moment imagine that time doesn't exist and that everything happens at the same time. Because even when you go to a past life, you sort of go to a altered version of your reality, of your life, of the possibilities of your life. But everything is really happening at the same time. Time is it's a human invention basically. And when I studied astrology, or when I started to study astrology, it really blew my mind when I came to understand how time itself really doesn't exist. We as humans made up time in order to have some sort of cycle in our lives, some kind of relatable cycle in our life. And I mean, obviously time is very helpful as well, but everything is really happening at the same time. So when you go into a past life, so to speak, you're not really going into the past. You are just going into a space that in our time and in our sort of like time and there and there sort of reality, it's more like a relatable point within our mind. Okay, think of your life as this one big flow, and everything is just happening right now. But as you change something in this, all that's happening right now, it also changes everything else. So in that sense, past life regression is incredibly beneficial for your life starting to unfold in really positive ways. And when we look at it more in a human sort of space now, I normally use a ruler for this because I think it's just easier. But let's just imagine that this is your space of life right now. This is where you are. Okay, this is your current, this is your now. Whatever time you're looking at this is your now space. This is the past, just in this life, not in other lifetimes. This is the past, and this is the future. So the future doesn't exist. We create the future from our current point of consciousness. But this current point of consciousness that we have, it's a direct result of what happened in the past. Our understanding of ourselves, our understanding of our worth and our value and those type of things. And some of us have grown up with very negative patterning in our lives. Things like, well, does anybody ever really find true love in any case? If you want to be successful in life, you've got to work really, really hard. Money is the root of all evil. Bad things happen to good people. There's no such a thing as a free lunch. What are many of these things that we say to ourselves? This is just how things are in our family. We are cursed. The women in our family seem to all attract bad men, etc., etc., etc. We've got all these things that we say to ourselves. And a lot of times in our childhood, we pick up that patterning from our parents or our guardians or maybe our older siblings, aunts, cousins, whatever. But then they often got it from their past relatives, and those past relatives got it from their past relatives. So when we're looking at past life regression, we are looking at going back into that pattern, and we're looking for the origin of the pattern. But if you look at this experience of life here right now, all right, now it's not balancing very nicely. So we are all emotional beings. We recall everything in our life with a certain emotional attachment to it. like it, hate it, feeling kind of blah, whatever, that sort of thing. But when you change the emotional connection or tie that you have to something that happened in the past, it changes your current space. Okay? When you, for example, think about it, when you change, let's say, something really horrible happened to you in childhood, okay? Or maybe in a previous relationship, or in a job, or maybe with your health, and now you're still afraid of getting sick. Maybe you had cancer, now you're in remission, and maybe you've been in remission for 20 years, but there's always the fear that it may come back. So all of that is from the past, and whatever that past is has an influence on our current space of life. But when you then forgive that past, so now you're no longer mad at a lot of people, and you've forgiven whoever and whatever. Maybe you've been blaming your parents for a lot of things in your life, but when you come to understand that they didn't know any better, so they couldn't do any better, because we can only really in life operate with the knowledge and understanding that we have. And it's very challenging sometimes for us to accept that our parents only did the best that they knew how. Because we're like, well, if I was a parent, I would not have done that. But, you know, I think it's very important to always bear in mind that the world itself is ever evolving and ever changing. And certain options that you might see, certain logic and things that you may see, be it from your life influence, from your education, from the internet, books or whatever's available, your parents may not have had that. So they weren't able to act from that, what you would see as a more powerful point. But when we can accept and we go back and now forgive them, then we don't spend a lot of time in our current space and energy trying to be mad at them and all those type of things, and we release that. And our whole experience of life changes. So your now changes, and because your now changes, your subconscious patterning of yourself changes, and because your subconscious patterning of yourself changes, by default you create a different future for yourself, and that changes your experience of life. Okay, so you may be one of those people that say, well, with past life regression, I can have a session, but, because I will see that maybe I was a baker in a previous life, or, I was a soldier, or I was a king or a queen or whatever, so why would I care? And I will tell you that for a very long period of time, that was my exact thought pattern. Why would I care? I mean, I'm not living 500 years ago now. Why would I care what I did 500 years ago? And this is why you would care. It's because we are constant consciousness that is forever expanding. We are eternally evolutionary beings. So you are currently the consciousness known to you as you, with the body, but it's a temporary thing in your much longer period of life. You have always been, and you will always be. And so the consciousness of who you are interacted with a game of life at a different time, in a different sort of avatar, in a different sort of body, in a different set of circumstances and situations. But just because you've got a different body now, and a certain period of time in our consciousness has passed, doesn't change the fact that you are just still you. You may have a different body, you may have a different sort of life circumstances, but in essence, you are still you. And the question that really sort of started to boggle my mind, which is incredible, is that we often say that everything carries energy. But if you say that everything carries energy, what is the everything then that is carrying the energy? Because we also say that everything is energy. And so when you come from a point where you can almost start to look at things, that you can maybe say that that you are an expression of possibility. You are a human or a physical expression of possibility. Whereas in other lifetimes, you may have been an expression of a different possibility. Not even necessarily human. You may have been a dog. You may have been a rock. The soul wants to experience. So when we are in what you would call in regression hypnosis life between lives, that is basically when you are just pure consciousness and you are not sort of like expressed in any form of physicality. So you're not a human, you're not a plant, you're not an animal, that sort of thing. From that point, we get to see that we can do everything. We get to understand that we can do everything. We get to understand that life is just a game. But think about it like this. Imagine having boundless amounts of money. So you're a multi-billionaire in every currency in the world. You can go anywhere, you can do anything, you can build anything, you can buy anything. So let's just imagine, so now you've got your dream house and your dream car or cars, and you've, I mean, whatever, you've got a helicopter or a jet or a yacht or whatever it is that you want to have. You've got your holiday homes in Monaco or whatever, you've got everything. There is nothing that you really still want in life. You've got it all. From that point of having it all, and really try to place yourself in that mindset. When you have everything that as humans we often work so hard for, would you really sort of be okay with life and just lay around, say maybe you've got another 50 years on this planet, you wake up, you drool through life, you go to bed, you're not really doing anything. You know what I'm saying? So when you're in that space, you might want to start doing different things. You might start wanting to do other things, because now you're not concerned about your survival so much. You're not so concerned about food and, going to work and getting a car, and maybe being concerned about your education or your children's education or your niece and nephews or whatever. Everybody's sorted. That might be really wonderful for a period of time, but I think you might agree with me, after a while it might start becoming quite mundane. And that is very much the experience that the soul has in sort of like the allness of the universe. You're seeing all these different possibilities that's available, but you would probably want to partake in something, okay? And in the same thing, when you've got all your materialistic needs taken care of and you understand that the money's never going to run out, you might want to start doing different things. Maybe there's something that you always wanted to do in your life but you never could do. I don't know, maybe you want to create like an oracle deck or whatever it is that you want to do. Think of the experience of humans on planet Earth in the same thing, because Earth is like a playing field basically. And yes, it's like a school, and yes, we come to learn lessons, but I think sometimes we take these things so seriously. Maybe one of the lessons or one of the experiences that the soul want to have is to just maybe feel more carefree, to just maybe have more joy, to just sort of, cruise through life. Maybe that's the lesson that you want to learn, okay? But, obviously when you think about it, because when you think of us as our consciousness, because the human form that we have, the physical form that we have, it is simply an expression of our consciousness. So this physical form is the expression that is held within our consciousness. And so when you play any game in life, doesn't really matter what it is, sometimes you'll make some mistakes, you maybe miss some cues, maybe you get hurt, maybe you get distracted, you fall in love, whatever it is that you do. So think about it, when we have multiple experiences of life, we do certain things that sometimes are really wonderful for us, and we do certain things that are not that wonderful, okay? And our consciousness carries the allness of who we are and the allness of who we've always been. So when you then say, for example, get in your current experience, let's say you are scared of heights, or you're scared of swimming, for example, or maybe both. It could be that maybe in a previous life, and I'm talking about, I'm speaking of almost sort of like erratic fears that we can have sometimes, erratic phobias that we can have sometimes. A lot of times that has got its origin in a previous life. Maybe you've been murdered, being thrown off a cliff into water in a previous life or something like that. And even though you're not consciously aware of, in your subconscious, that is still there. So your subconscious is saying to you, it's not safe to go there, things might go bad. And I think as human beings, we sometimes, it's so easy to say to somebody, just pull yourself together. This doesn't make any sense. But just because it doesn't make sense to me, doesn't mean that it has to be the same for you. Because yes, we are this collective expression of consciousness, but we also have individual experiences. Okay, so what then often happens with past life regression is it's sort of like a broader sense of this life within this life, where you go back to a previous part of your consciousness where something happened and you change your emotional connection to that. The journey of forgiveness, basically. Okay. Some of you might be familiar with Alba Weinman. She's a really amazing regression hypnosis practitioner, and she calls her service that she offers the journey of forgiveness. Because when we forgive, we change how we feel about something, how we relate to something. Okay, and it sets us free. I mean, just imagine that something happened in a previous life. Maybe you got stabbed to death or something like that. Imagine if you no longer have that fear in your subconscious. Imagine within yourself, within the allness of who you are, you can forgive that. When you do, your entire experience of life changes, because you don't have to give energy to that any longer. You let it go. And so this is one of the reasons why when you have one of these sessions, a regression hypnosis session, that your life begins to change, and it begins to change beautifully and often really, really fast. Because when we hold on to certain things, whether we're consciously aware of it or not, it does impact our life, because it forms part of our core patterning and our core belief and our core truth of who we are. When you change that, your life itself changes, because you are technically a different person. Your consciousness is altered. And even, a lot of times people say to me when they've had, one of these beautiful sessions, they say to me, I looked in the mirror and I just look different. And I'm like, yeah, that happens, because your inner dialogue, your inner pattern, your blueprint has altered. Your DNA programming has altered. Because anything that we don't deal with, it remains part of who we are. It remains part of your pathology. And so in the same way that you're from a certain family or a certain family lineage, and in your DNA patterning there's a belief that you have blue eyes and blonde hair, so does our sort of like personal kind of like connection or flow of who we are, But you can change that. And I think that is the wonderful thing with past life regression. We look at, so what is your problem right now? Romance, money, health, confidence, whatever it may be. So we don't focus on the problem, because in regression hypnosis, or that really works with your overall energy, we understand that in the same way, when we got angry or upset or whatever, that your life is bigger than this one moment, we also understand in a universal sense that your life on earth, birth or death, is seen as a moment. And it's like a blink of an eye. And in this moment, there's more to you than just this life. All right? And when we go look at those other parts of yours, and say, okay, so what is it that is causing this experience to take place? Why are you having this repeated experience that you don't like? Always in a bad relationship, never running, running towards complete success. Maybe making money but not able to hold on to the money. People are doing, terrible things to you. The moment we can begin to accept that whatever happens to us in our life, whatever happens to you in your life, is a mirror reflection of your inside world. So what we do in regression hypnosis, say, okay, let's go and have a look at that mirror. Let's go see what is it that is being reflected in this mirror, and why is it there, And then when you forgive, you take certain things away from your life. And it's not so necessarily that you forget them, but it's that you sort of relate to them differently. And just imagine that, say, maybe in a different lifetime, let's just stay with the part that, I know it's a very extreme example, but sometimes this causes a lot of this upheaval for people in their lives. So let's imagine that you were murdered and you were sort of pushed off this cliff. You fell into the water. It was quite a big distance, so the moment you hit the water, kaboom, gone with you. It only makes sense that within your subconscious, there is going to be almost like a warning trigger that says to you that heights are bad, and that water is bad, and anything else that relates to that can also start becoming bad. And then we start having patterns, say maybe your partner, your child is very fascinated by swimming, and maybe they're very good at swimming, and now they want to partake in some sort of competition or nationals or whatever. And you are adamant, no, 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 and you're horrified about it, and you can't sleep, and you break into a sweat about it. And a lot of people may say, but you are being unreasonable. What could possibly go wrong? And you yourself may not understand why it is that you have this within your life. And that usually has some sort of origin in a previous life. Now let's imagine if you go back into a previous life, and you're not trying to change what happened, but you're trying to change your emotional, sort of like attachment to what happened. And you understand that just because it happened to you doesn't necessarily mean that it has to happen to someone else that you care about. The fear goes away, and when the fear goes away, it starts making space for beautiful other things to flow through. It's like opening the windows and drawing the curtains and letting the air come in. Okay? And also the other thing I think with past life regression, which is so amazing, is that when we simply get shown the allness of who we are, that there's more to it than just that, it immediately expands your mind. And it can even unlock some talents that you had in previous lifetimes, skills that you refined in previous lifetimes. And so that is where you sometimes get in life that people sometimes say like, well, I'm trying so hard and nothing is working out for me, no matter how hard I try. And then other people, they just sort of zoosh through life, they don't seem to care, everything just works out for them. It's all got to do with your subconscious patterning and what you believe to be true for yourself. People that are, say you brought up in a family that has got lots of money, and there was always just money, old money. Your mindset is different from a person who grew up with a lot of lack and scarcity. Okay? And when you change that mindset, that foundational truth, that patterning within yourself, then things change, And I think the one thing that we often have is that people say that, well, I don't really know if this session is for me. I mean, it's a little bit pricey, and what if it doesn't work? And this is the thing that I would say to them, well, it's entirely your choice whether you want to invest in your own growth or not. But let's think for a moment how much your coping mechanisms are costing you. How much money do you spend trying to cope with your patterns by either exercising yourself halfway to death and taking all kinds of products to look better and feel better about yourself, and then on the outside you appear all confident and vibrant and whatever, but when you're home you almost want to, curl up in a fetus position and cry in your shower. How much is it costing you in booze, in cigarettes, in recreational drugs? How much is it costing you in trying to feel good about yourself, so you buy these unnecessary expensive gifts for your friends? You throw these huge parties to show everybody how good you are doing. You're a good wife, you're a good boss, you're a good person, you're good whatever. But you still don't feel good within yourself about what you are doing. How much is it costing you in therapy? And not even only that, the longer you have a pattern within yourself, whatever happens within us has a way of also unfolding on the outside. It is believed that one of the greatest contributors towards cancer is unresolved pain, is unresolved trauma. And then the question is, do you really want that? Because having cancer, for example, is expensive to get the treatments, but it's also highly inconvenient. It's not a pleasant thing to have. But when you release the pattern within yourself that is causing certain expressions in life that you don't like, you change who you are. And when you change who you are, in actual fact, let me just go back there just a little bit. You kind of pull away the layers of the onions that is the representation, so to speak, of who you are, which is not really you. It's those false identities. Now remember, imagine taking those false identities away, and the true you come forth, the true light of you come forth. You know, the one thing that I always say to everybody that I work with is that, because a lot of times we want to attract this and we want to attract this and we want to manifest this and we want to create this, but everything already exists. It's when you are in alignment with your life purpose, with your true self, with your authentic self, that you activate this magical magnet inside of you, that you don't have to go look for anything. Everything comes to you. And that is the power of past life regression within regression hypnosis. Got any questions about that? My contact details or more information of that is all down below in the description. But I just wanted to share this with you because this is something that I'm highly passionate about. I see practical miracles in my life, because I have benefited so much from regression hypnosis in my life. And I see such beautiful things that happen for other people. It gives me so much joy when, literally last week, somebody who's had a lot of problems with her health, for example, practically on the brink of death at some point, had one session with me, and next thing, this person found a job that she really loves. Things are just unfolding, things are just working. This person's health is just improving. And it is when you release the core initiator of the pattern that is causing the discomfort in your life. It's when you change that. And obviously, since you're in this beautiful space, we also work at reprogramming your subconscious so that it can work for your benefit. That is when your life begins to change in absolutely beautiful ways. So from my heart, namaste, love and light.